Merhaba arkadaşlar, hepiniz IEFT Talks webinarlarına hoş geldiniz. Bugün Avustralya'nın en merak edilen okullarından Macquarie Üniversitesi'den Anthony bizlere Avustralya'da eğitim anlatıyor olacak. Lütfen sorularınızı questions kısmından sormayı unutmayın. Yes, Anthony, the stage is yours now.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, and herkese merhaba, everybody. That's about the limit of my Turkish, I'm afraid. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to explain to you a little bit about the whole concept of studying at university in Australia and in Sydney, and of course at Macquarie University with us. But before we start, in the chat box, I'm always, whenever I do these webinars, I'm always very interested to know where people are listening from. So if, excuse me, if in the chat box, can you just type in exactly where you are? Are you in Istanbul? Are you in Izmir? Are you in Adana? Are you in Diyarbakır? Are you in Ankara? So I'm very interested to know where you're tuning in from, because I spent 1 year in Turkey many years ago. Gözde's in Izmir, nice to meet you. And I spent a long time traveling all the way across the Black Sea coast through Trabzon, right to the very end, down through the borders, Kars, Van, Diyarbakır, Adana, right the way down to around the south coast, the Mediterranean coast. So I've seen a lot of your wonderful country, and your food is amazing. Okay, so we've got Kocaeli, Istanbul, brilliant. So when I lived in Turkey, I lived in Istanbul. I lived on the Asian side. I lived near Kadıköy in a place called Ziverbey, if anybody knows. All right, well, let's get started. Now, I'm going to share my screen with you, everybody, because I've got a presentation. But just before we get kick off, I just want to let you know, so we're Macquarie University. We're based in Sydney, and I am the regional director for the whole of the European region and the African region. So I look after a large part of the world. So I should be able to help you with all your questions. But in the meantime, let's get started with the presentation. So just give me one second, fire it up. Okay. So excuse me, everybody, I have a bit of a cold. It's not a COVID-related cough, so don't worry. It's just a bit of a cough. So anyway, my name is Anthony Bradley. I'm the regional director for Africa and Europe. Macquarie University has a very large global footprint, and we have regional directors based everywhere. We've got one in North America, South America. I'm based in Europe. We've got people based in China, in Indonesia, in India. So we're actually one of the few universities to have a footprint with an office in all over the world. So it's actually my pleasure to be here today to talk to you a little bit about Australia. I'm sure you know all this, guys, but it's located in the Southern Hemisphere. The population is about 25 million, okay? So you imagine that the whole population of Australia is not that much bigger than the population of Istanbul, okay? So you can imagine that outside of the city centers, things are very unpopulated and sparse. So if you want to get away from big cities, you certainly can. 1 in 4 people who live in Australia were not born in Australia, okay? It's reflective of a very post-colonial migration country. So when Captain Cook discovered it in the 18th century, there were waves of migration from Vietnam, from Greece, from Italy, and now we're seeing Africans and Europeans moving in there. So it's a very dynamic, fast-moving, multicultural country to live in. It's the 6th biggest country in the world. It's an island surrounded by water, smallest continent. And just by way of contrast, the UK, I just checked on Google, fits into Australia about 35 times. Now, I probably should have done that with Turkey to give you a bit more of a perspective, but it's probably about 20 times bigger than Turkey. It's a huge country. Now, politically, it is divided into 6 states and 2 territories. Excuse me. Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Australian Capital Territory, Tasmania, South Australia, Northern Territory, Western Australia. Each of those states has its own premier, like its own little mini prime minister, and each of those then reports to the prime minister, who is Scott Morrison. So even though it's a big, empty country, politically it can get a little bit confusing because the education system in New South Wales is different to the education system in Queensland. Some of the driving rules can even be different from state to state. So there is a distinct different flavor in the different states in Australia. And even though I would love you to come and study at Macquarie University, if you are serious about studying in Australia, you need to do your research on what is it you want out of Australia. Do you want a hot part of Australia, in which case you need to go up to the north of Queensland? Do you want a cooler part, Tasmania? Do you want to watch the sun rise, in which case you study in the east? Do you want to see the sun set, in which case you study on the west? Do you want to be by the coast, in the city, in the country? So there are lots of different components that you need to weigh up when you decide what part of Australia you're going to study in. Now, that is a picture of Sydney. It's a beautiful, watery Sydney. In many ways, it reminds me of Istanbul, in as much as you've got a high density living wrapped around a very watery area. Of course, you've got the Bosphorus and you've got the Black Sea and you've got the Mediterranean side linked. And in Australia with Sydney, everything is built around Sydney Harbour. So it's quite similar in the way everything is focused around the water. Now, if you study in Sydney, you can expect a fantastic city of opportunity. Now, the Australian government has, excuse me, the Australian government has a number of policies in place which makes it very attractive for international students. For example, when you apply to study in Australia, you will need a student visa, okay? What we call a visa subclass 500. Now, embedded within that visa is a work permit, which entitles you to work part-time, 40 hours maximum over a 2-week period. So if you come over with your spouse or your partner, as long as you're doing a postgraduate degree, your spouse or your partner can study full-time. When you finish, as long as you complete a 2-year program, when you complete that program, you can stay back in Australia on a post-study working visa for a maximum of 3 years, normally 2, but it's 3 years depending on where you study. If you do a research master's degree, you automatically get 3 years post-study. And if you do a PhD, you automatically get a 4-year post-study. So what I'm trying to say is that Australia has put in place a number of government policies that make it a very attractive and beneficial and productive environment for an international student to study. And it cuts both ways. Yes, of course, we want you to come over and have a good time, but we also want you to contribute to society. We want you to become a part of the workforce, to pay tax, to grow the population. So it is really a growing area. Great lifestyle. Now, that's another key thing, is that I am, if you can't tell by my accent, I'm actually British. My mother is from New Zealand. My dad is English. I lived in Australia for 20 years. I've actually got 3 passports. But I grew up and I was brought up in the UK, and I lived in Australia for 20 years. So I have a foot in both camps. And I can tell you now that the lifestyle in Australia is very, very attractive indeed. And it is very important, as Europeans yourselves, when you get over there, to not overwork, not overstudy, enjoy yourself, get out of the doors when you finish your program, finished your work, go down the beach, go for a walk around the harbour, catch up in a cafe. So the weather allows it to be a sort of a place where you can really enjoy your downtime. I've covered the multicultural population, and that's as a result of waves and waves of migration over the decades. Very high level of safety. This is very, very important. I spend a lot of time in and around Africa, and many people choose to study in Australia simply because of the safety and the security. We have a very large middle class that pay tax, which goes towards funding a very good police service. So the police are not corrupt. The police are unbribable. The unemployment rate is very low. The employment rate is very, very high. So you'll find that all lends itself to a very safe environment. And there's great employment, as I mentioned. We are very open towards giving work to international students, to migrants, to locals, and the unemployment rate is very, very small. Now, I'm going to show you a very, very short video. It's a 2-minute video that shows you about Sydney. So that was just a very short video. That video is actually made by our media and communications postgraduate students using the drone. So we actually have sold that video out to a number of tourism companies, and they use that, but it was actually made by Macquarie students. Now, as we're going through this presentation, I can hear little funny noises that indicate that you are asking questions. Make sure you do ask your questions and put them into the question tab. I will get to them, I promise. At the moment, I can't actually see the questions, but I am guessing you're asking about scholarships, you're asking about borders opening, you're asking about certain programs, but keep the questions coming. I will get to them sooner or later. Now, Sydney, a couple of years ago, was voted the second most desirable student city in the world. It wavers. Sometimes it's number 1, sometimes it's number 2, sometimes it's number 4. But in the past decade, Sydney has never dropped out of a top 10 city in the whole world for students to study at. And that is actually because of the reasons I gave earlier. It's safe, it's multicultural, it's got a great lifestyle, and there's good opportunities. And this is some lovely pictures for you to have a look at, and some of the activities that you can get up to while you're studying. So, as I said, it's super important to balance your life while you study. Study hard, you work hard, you play hard as well. So these colorful pictures indicate some of the activities you can get up to. Go down to the city center, look at the Opera House. Try your hand at surfing. Just remember that surfing picture there. If you go too far out, you do become part of the food chain. We've got underwater aquariums. We've got open air cinemas, hundreds of kilometers of bushwalks that just skirt the city. And we've got thousands of kilometers of beaches all around the country. So it really is it's a great city in a great country to study. Now, let's talk a little bit about the university. Why Macquarie University? So Macquarie was actually named after an English general that came over, Scottish, I think he was. He actually came over to Australia in the 19th century, did some administration work, made a name for himself, and then moved back. So it's named after a guy called Lachlan Macquarie. And it is located to the northwest of the city centre. And it is a very, very large campus. So it's built on, it's a public university, okay? It's a government university, it's not private. However, the university is built on privately owned land, okay? And it is huge. It's 126 hectares, which is just over 2 square kilometers. It's huge. It's like a park. We have our own park, our own lake, our own fountain, and it's got an amazing amount of world-class facilities, which I'll talk about in a minute. It was established in 1964, which makes it 3 years older than me. Roughly 40,000 students. 25% of our students are international. So the Macquarie University's international student body reflects the international makeup of Australia. 25% of the students and the population were not born in the country. Very, very flexible courses. So if you are doing a bachelor's degree, you might want to try some arts, some science, some media, some engineering. You can mix and match. We are 15 kilometers from the Sydney city centre. And as I mentioned, it's privately owned land, which we then build infrastructure and rent office spaces to over 300 companies on campus. So for example, at Macquarie University campus, we've got Microsoft have an office, Deloitte have an office, Johnson & Johnson have an office, Oryx, Cochlear. These are one of 300 different companies that actually hold office space on the campus. So what we're trying to do is to create an interface between your academic studies and finding potential employment. So some very savvy students now are beginning to put together their CVs, knocking on the doors saying, look, I'm doing a Master of Information Technology. Do you have any volunteer work, part-time work, jobs? So there is a very, very close link. And as a result, Macquarie University, excuse me, as of last year, had the #1 ranking for graduate employment outcomes, which means that within 6 months, over 85% of our students had found good work. We have our own train station, so it's like a hub. So you have Soyutlu station over in the Asian side. We've got Macquarie University station right on campus, which takes you in and out of the city. And we are ranked in the top 1% of world universities. Excuse me. Sorry about my cough, everybody. Now, the university, all comprehensive universities in Australia, you have bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, research degrees, PhDs. The ultimate goal of getting a PhD is either to go into becoming a professor, to developing your research, or to have an industrial application of your research. And these are some of the industrial applications that have come as a result of Macquarie University-based research. You may not know all these: big history, cochlear, gamma knife, robotic library, first robotics. You may not know those, but I am sure that you know Wi-Fi. Okay. About, I think it was in the late 70s, early 80s, 2 software engineers were the very first people to transmit information without a wire. And of course, it's snowballed to the point now where, you know, we can't live without Wi-Fi. So what I'm saying is that we have left our mark in terms of very, very high level industrial application of our research. Where are we? Okay, so that is what Sydney Harbour looks like. You can see the river running up there. You've got Bondi Beach here. Everybody's heard of Bondi Beach. You may have heard of Manly Beach. We are inland about 15 kilometers from the city centre. So by car, 30 minutes. To Bondi Beach, 40 minutes. We also have the train, which takes more or less the same time. The train at certain times of day is better than the car, because for those of you living in Istanbul, you know what rush hour is like. And that's a picture of our campus. It's a massive campus, 126 hectares. It's like a small town. You've got everything. We've got a hospital. In fact, we have Australia's only private on-campus university hospital. So anybody doing medicine or psychology or linguistics or health service management, you're actually studying on campus. You don't even need to leave campus to go to hospital. We have a sports center down here on the right-hand side, an Olympic standard sports center. We have an international college. So for those of you coming from high school in Turkey wanting to do a bachelor's degree, you may spend 1 year in the international college. Huge number of companies here. This area here is called MPID, Macquarie Park Innovation District. It is a technological precinct and the fastest growing area in the whole of Australia. And we have a lot of space to grow in. We actually own all this land as well. So it's a small town, 40,000 people plus 3,000 staff. So you could technically wake up in the morning from your apartment, go for a swim, cycle along here, fall over, break your wrist, go to hospital, catch up with your friends for lunch, and you still never have to leave the campus, okay? So you can stay put. And running across the top of this are a number of accolades that have been attributed to the university. So for example, we're ranked in the top 1% of academic institutions in Australia, in the world, I should say. We're ranked #1 in Australia for graduate employment rate. All our research has 5-star rankings. This one here is the one I think that's very interesting for you guys. We have more than 30,000 workplaces. So we try to find either an internship or a part of your program that allows you to go and engage with companies. Okay, so there's something called a catch-22. I don't know if you know what catch-22 is, but it means that you cannot find a job without experience, but you can't get experience without a job. So what we try to do is to cut through all that and find work experience for you while you're studying. Okay. Now, these are the areas of our academic excellence. It's a comprehensive university. It's a big university. So it's actually easier for me to tell you what we don't have. All right. We've got the usual programs: business, education, engineering, environment, health, law, criminology, media, creative arts, science, humanities. What we don't have, we do not have veterinary science, okay? We don't have nursing, we don't have pharmacy, and we don't have dentistry, okay? We pretty much have everything else. Now, for those of you who are in high school looking to do a bachelor's degree in Australia, this is how it works if you are coming through the Turkish system, okay? So if you're doing the devlet lise diploması, then if you get 3 or less out of 5, you will need to do a foundation program. If you get 3 or 3.5 or more out of 5, you will start by doing a diploma year. Okay, so for example, you finish your high school in Istanbul, you want to do a Bachelor of Business Administration. Your first year would be a Diploma of Commerce. And then if you complete that year successfully, you go into the second year of a Bachelor of Business Administration, and then the third year. So it's still a 3-year deal, okay? Those diplomas are not extra years. They are a replacement first year, all right? I can explain that to you more a little bit later if it crops up. Now, another thing that's worth mentioning is that obviously I'm quite busy. I do a lot of traveling, or I used to do a lot of traveling, but I spend a lot of time in front of the computer making calls and things. We have 3 education partners or agents or representatives in Turkey. All of them are fantastic. All of them know Macquarie very well, and I've been to their offices in Turkey, and several of these have actually been onto the campus in Australia. We've got Atlas Education Services, Hub Edu, and IDP Turkey. Those are the 3 companies that represent Macquarie University out of Turkey. And if you do have any queries about how do you make an application, how much money do I need, how do I apply for a visa, can I take my wife and kids, those sort of questions, it's a very good idea to check out one of those 3. Say that you saw me on a webinar. They know me very well. They'll WhatsApp me or give me a ring. And then we can take any application from there. So as I mentioned, we are a comprehensive university. We've got 4 main faculties: arts, business, medicine and health, science and engineering. Those are the 4 main faculties. We also have something called Macquarie Graduate School of Management, which is specifically designed to house students doing our MBA program. Our MBA is very, very highly ranked in the world. So you've got your own special building and your own special area if you're an MBA student. And as I said, if you are a high school student and you need to do a diploma or a foundation year, you will do that here, Macquarie University International College. Now, I'm not going to spend a long time on these, but our Faculty of Arts is massive. So if you want to study ancient history or anthropology, or whether you want to study policing, intelligence, and counterterrorism, all of these sit in our Faculty of Arts. We're also equally large and famous in business and economics, accounting, corporate governance, applied finance, actuarial studies, economics, marketing and management. These are areas of very prominent strength for Macquarie University. Medicine and health is actually very big as well. Our Vice Chancellor, Professor Bruce Doughton, is a doctor. Okay, the boss of the university, the rector, is a doctor. And as such, he has really put the spotlight on everything that we can do in the health areas. So we are a member of the Australian Institute of Health Innovation. We've got everything related to biomedical sciences, clinical medicine, health professions, cognitive science, education, linguistic psychology, you name it. And we have a hospital. Science and engineering speaks for itself. We also have something, I'm speeding up a little bit, guys, because I want to get to your questions. I mentioned earlier on about workplace internships and work opportunities. Now, this sits under the blanket of PACE. PACE stands for Professional and Community Engagement, all right? What that means is part of your degree, bachelor's degrees mainly, you've got no choice. You actually have to go and do some internship or a field trip or community development, and that will form part of your bachelor's degree. It gives you the chance to get your hands dirty in the real world. It gives you a chance to meet prospective employers. So basically, my message to you is if you meet anybody that's related to work, provisional work, employment, volunteering, get their contact details so you've got somewhere to go when you finish your degree. Again, balanced life, super important. Don't just study. You need to make friends. You need to become part of a group. And as a result, we've got a massive range. We've got a huge student union, a huge student area, a huge number of groups and societies and associations and festivals and clubs that you can join. During your first week, you will have the opportunity to meet all these different clubs. Try something new. Join a scuba diving club. Join a water skiing club. Try something new. Meet some friends. A lot of students come up to me and they say, oh, look, how do I meet Australian people? How do I meet more people? This is the way to do it. Join a group. All our accommodation is on campus. All right, so we've got a whole different range because it's a big university. We've got young students doing bachelor's degrees. We've got family middle 30s, 40s, 50s doing their PhDs with their wives and children. So we cater for every kind of student. Now you can stay on Macquarie University Village, which is on campus. We've got Dunmore Lang, residential colleges, homestay providers. We've got a massive range of accommodation options, which I can help you with, or our agent can help you with. This is also as important as anything else, the student support. So if you leave Istanbul or you leave Turkey or wherever you live and you go and study in Australia, yes, you've probably traveled the world before. You speak English, you might have plenty of money in the bank, who knows? But you're still possibly a long way from home. And it's very, very important to recognize if you're feeling depressed or culture shock or homesick or whatever, to take advantage of the student support. Okay, we've got something called campus well-being, and these are a group of people whose job is purely to counsel students who with disability issues, welfare issues, mental health issues, any concerns you've got. So if you're struggling in any way, make sure you take advantage of these student support. We will meet you at the airport free, pick you up. We've got a medical clinic on campus, as you would expect, given that we've got a hospital. We can help you with any issues that you may be having with your assignments or your programs or your referencing. Those of you who want to practice English, you guys, Turkish people generally, if they get to Australia, they're absolutely fine. Speak English better than most Australians. I didn't say that. Hope this is not being recorded. We also have a career and employment service. Now, the career and employment service is not there necessarily to find you a job, but it is to help you get that job. It will help you to write your CV. It will train you in interview technique. It will train you in how do you speak to somebody on the telephone. So getting a job consists of a whole series of steps. Making an application, attending the interview. What do you wear? How do you speak to these people? So it's very important that you take advantage of their knowledge when it comes to finding work. Now this, I'm not too sure about this slide actually. This gives you, living in Sydney is like living in any big city. It's actually quite expensive. The bottom line is this: when you apply for a visa to study in Australia, you actually have to have evidence of about 20,000 Australian dollars in the bank. So how much your accommodation costs or your cup of coffee costs or anything like that doesn't actually matter. You actually have to have evidence of about $20,000 in the bank. If you've got 20 grand in the bank, you should be okay for your food, accommodation, and living expenses. Not your tuition fees, that's a different thing. Your living expenses will tally to about $22,000 per year. Now, scholarships, the S word. I put it at the end because I know everybody loves talking about this. We have something called Macquarie University Europe Macquarie University Early Acceptance Scholarship. This is for Turkey. We have actually, even though only 2% of Turkey is in Europe, I have managed to push the rest of Turkey into Europe, which means that even if you're from Van or Kars or Diyarbakir, you're still considered a European student, which means you automatically have a $10,000 discount per year of study. So if you're doing a 3-year bachelor's degree, you're saving $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. 2-year masters, you're saving $10,000, $20,000. On average, a Macquarie University degree is about $38,000, $39,000. With this scholarship, it comes down to $28,000 or $29,000. So it's eligible to anybody from a European country, as I said. And it's an early acceptance scholarship, which means that if you are given an offer to study it, you apply to Macquarie to study cybersecurity. If we look at your application and we make an offer, you have 4 weeks to accept that offer. And as long as you accept that offer within a 4-week period, you'll get that $10,000 reduction. If you are umming and ahhing and you don't know, shall I go to Macquarie? Shall I go here? Shall I go there? If you take longer than 4 weeks to make up your mind, it drops down to $5,000. So you still get a discount even if you don't accept on time. And that is it. That is the end of the presentation. 30 minutes on the dot. I'm going to stop sharing now, and we're going to have a look at some of your questions. All right. Okay, Sema, is it expensive to live in Sydney? If much, how is the appropriate expenses would be monthly? Thanks. So, Sema, in answer to your question, I think I've already covered it actually. You're going to need a budget of about $20,000 per year for your food, your accommodation, and transport. International students learn very, very quickly how to budget, how to manage their budget. So, for example, if you're eating McDonald's and drinking beer every day, you're going to need more than $20,000. If you grow your own vegetables and drink water, you can get away with less. However, most students find that a budget of $22,000 is enough. Borders, please. Gözde Kilic. Oh, God, I totally agree with you. Borders. So what's happening with our borders? You might remember at the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned all the different states and territories in Australia. Each premier has a different idea about how they want to manage vaccination program, COVID. Fortunately, New South Wales, which is where Macquarie is, has been very, very progressive. And we have a pilot scheme, a very first plane landing on December the 6th with 250 students, which will be spread out towards the universities as a trial to see how it works. Now, I can't give you any concrete information, Gözde, or anybody about when these borders will open, but we've got our fingers crossed, our legs crossed, our ears crossed that it will be open for semester 1 next year, which we're really hoping that students will be able to start arriving in January or February, okay? It's not guaranteed, it might not happen, but we are beginning to see signs from the government that they realize the importance of opening borders. But that is probably, in fact, Gözde, just a piece of information for you. That is now the most popular question. It's overtaken, do you have any scholarships? So borders questions are now #1 in terms of questions. Okay, is it expensive, Sema? Do you have computer engineering programs? Yes, we do, Emmy. We do have computer engineering. Most of our programs, as I said, are about $39,000 per year. We've got software engineering, we've got IT programs, cybersecurity programs. You take 10,000 off that 39, you get 29. So it's about $29,000 per year. Sema, internship opportunities there are, but I'm afraid I can't talk to them specifically because they come and they go and the faculties work differently. Some students find them, some students don't. They are there, but I can't guarantee them. And like I said, each faculty and department and school works very differently. Credit, oh, this is a good one. Merve Yilmaz, credit transfers from a university in Turkey. So if you studied at Koç University, for example, you can apply for credit transfer. The closer your program is, so if you're done 2 years of cybersecurity at Koç University and you want to come into a cybersecurity program at Macquarie University, you're going to have more units which map across and you'll get more credit, okay? We cannot give 100% credit, okay? It's impossible to give 100% credit, but yes, it is possible, and it is something that we have a dedicated team of people for. The key word to remember here is RPL, Merve, okay? Recognition of prior learning. And we have a team of people that will look at your academic transcript from the Turkish institution and map it into the Macquarie one. Can we work, Sema? Yes, we can. You can work while you study 40 hours per 2 weeks. Do you also offer diploma or certificate programs? Yes, but they mean different things, okay? So a diploma to us is an undergraduate program for a student going from high school into a bachelor's program. If you mean graduate diplomas, yes, we do. We've got a graduate certificate, which is 6 months, and a graduate diploma, which is 1 year. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to get a visa for those. So generally speaking, most Turkish citizens, when they apply for a postgraduate program, they apply for a 2-year master's degree or a 1-year master's degree, and that will give you the visa. The shorter programs, grad cert, grad dips, are a little bit more difficult to get visa from. Do you accept Duolingo? Oh, that's an interesting one. I'm actually not too sure. We did at one point, but I think we are now not doing Duolingo. We take IELTS, TOEFL, Pearson's, Cambridge. And we do have pre-sessional English. So Eche Gune, yes, we do have pre-sessional English. We actually have our own language center on campus. So if you apply to do a degree that needs an IELTS of 6.5 and you only get a 6.0, we can offer you 5 or 10 or 15 weeks in our language center as a pre-sessional English program. Very, very good question. Eda, do we need to get GMAT scores for business? Nope. We don't care about GMAT. All we care about, if you're doing postgraduate, is that you have a good undergraduate degree with a 2-2, a second class lower, second class upper, first class. No GMAT. Yagis Jan, could you please mention about business administration master's program? So our MBA program is a 2-year MBA program, and it's about $40,000 per year minus the $10,000, so it's $30,000 per year. And it is ranked in the top 4 in the whole of Australia. It's got a very, very good ranking, our MBA program. You will need work experience. So our MBA program needs you to have a bachelor's degree, plus you also need to have 2 or 3 years work at a middle management or professional level. Bachelor's program is AP or SAP or IB obligated. It's not obligated, Emmy. But if that's what you've got, we will recognize it. Excuse me. As I said, we're an international university. So if you've done the Turkish system, we recognize it. If you've done A-levels or IB or SAP or SATs, if you've come through the Chinese system, we pretty much recognize every academic curricula you imaginable. Now, some of you... Oh, here we go. Good. Zainab, thank you very much for telling everybody to put the questions into the question. Gözde, you're welcome. Büche değil. Okay, any more questions? Oh, all these thumbs up are coming. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys a question. And in the chat box, I want you to answer this, okay? If you know the answer, don't put it in. If you don't know the answer, have a good guess. I always ask this question because it's a good question. Many people ask me about sharks and spiders and snakes, and is it dangerous to live in Australia because of all the wild animals? It isn't. It's no more dangerous than me being worried about being eaten by a bear walking down the streets of Istiklal Caddesi, okay? However, what do you think is the most dangerous thing for international students? What is responsible for more deaths of international students in Australia than anything else? Pop your answers in the chat room. And if anybody does come to Australia to study at Macquarie and you get it right, I will buy you a cup of coffee. Come on, Bengu. Let's see what your answer is. Snake? Emmy, no, it's not a snake. That's a good answer. It's the ocean. It's not the ocean. The ocean does kill a lot of people because people go there, they go for a swim, they don't realize how dangerous the ocean is. Surfing, the odd person might die of surfing, but it's not the most common, and it's not at the highest level of concern. It's not the ocean, it's not surfing, it's not a snake. Come on, guys, more questions. Shark, it's not a shark, it's not an animal. Let me give you a hint. It would affect a Turkish person, but it would not affect a British person. It would affect an American person, but it would not affect a Japanese person. It would affect a Nigerian person, but not a Kenyan person. Mosquitoes, Rana? No, we don't have racist mosquitoes. They just bite everybody. Anybody else? Heat, that's a very good answer. Yes, John. No, it's not the heat. The heat does kill people, yes. but we have students from extremely hot countries and they're not affected by it. When I tell you the answer, you'll immediately understand what I'm talking about. Have a think about what a very dangerous aspect of life in your own country. Muhammad, no, it's not sharks. They might kill 1 or 2 people, but that's it. Have a think about what's dangerous in your countries, particularly the big cities. The government. Yes. It's not the government, no, but who knows? That's the dark side of things. Yes, Thursday, it is the traffic. We drive on the other side of the road. So Rana, Thursday, you're right, not the crow, no. We drive on the other side of the road to you guys in Turkey. So when you're walking across the street, you automatically look left. You should be looking right. That is what is the biggest problem for international students. Kangaroos? No, they do kill the odd person, but we kill more kangaroos than they kill humans. We eat kangaroos, Mohammed. Very delicious, but it's difficult to stop the meat from jumping around on the plate. Oh, that's a terrible joke. Semati, the border is still closed. Yes, at the moment it is, but we are hoping very, very soon that it will be open. Safak, what is your opportunity for PhD programs and having integrated master programs? Okay, PhD programs are a completely different thing altogether. If you want to do a PhD, you must have research background at postgrad level anyway. So you'll need to find a supervisor, develop a thesis. This is something earlier on in the presentation, I gave you a list of 3 agents. Contact one of them and say you want to do a PhD and they will point you in the right direction. I'm going to put my email address. Let me put my email address into the chat box. Anthony Bradley at mq.edu. Guys, in the chat box is my email address. Send me an email if you want any question about PhDs, Safak. I can send you a link which explains how PhDs work. When does the intake for September 22? Okay, another Thursday. In Australia, the intakes are February and July, not September. September's the UK. It's the other way around. So the next intake is February, and the next intake after that is July. So it starts now. For the next intake in February, already we're receiving applications. Some people are thinking about February. Some people are thinking about next July. The border is still closed. Safak PhDs. Okay. Any other questions? Let's have a look. You like koalas? I know, me too. They're very, very delicious. We don't eat koalas, don't worry. But they are very cute, very dangerous. They live up in trees, okay? They're sometimes called drop bears. They live up in trees. And if they see an international student walking underneath it, they drop down and they'll try and eat you. Don't listen to me. Any other questions, guys? Anything else? I should point out, as I said, job opportunities. Australia is a wonderful country for finding work when you finish. But what you have to remember is that the jobs are there. You just have to go looking for them. So you have to develop a very proactive mentality. Nobody will come up to you and say, oh, well done, here's a job. You have to get out there. You've got to be proactive. You've got to do your emailing. You've got to knock on doors, make your phone calls, accept rejection. It's all about the jobs are there. You just have to be very proactive in order to find them. Do you offer top-up programs? I don't know what you mean exactly by top-up programs, to be honest. If you have not completed a degree in Turkey, like you're in your second or your first year, you can transfer the credits and finish with us. But top-up programs, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. I'm sorry. Any other questions? Zeynep, have I missed anything? Have I missed anything here?
No, it looks like you covered all of the questions, Anthony.
It's almost as if I've... Yeah. Do you have any
another question regarding the sport management master programs?
Hi, Mohammed. I'm sorry. One of the areas we don't have it at the moment, but we are going to have it next year. So from semester 2 next year, from July next year, we will have a sport management program. At the moment, we don't. It's still being finalized and legalized, and all the loose ends are being tied up. And we should have it available next year. So keep your eye on our website. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to ask you guys another question while you're thinking. Oh, hang on, here we go. Yagis, I'm going to graduate from metallurgical and material science program in January. I want to pursue my master's in Australia. I don't have any professional experience. So it depends what program. Oh, Yagis, this is for your MBA. Was this for your MBA? If you don't have professional experience, you cannot do an MBA. An MBA is really for people with years and years of professional experience. If you don't have professional experience, you can still do a Master of International Business, a Master of Commerce, a Master of Finance. You can still do a master's program, but you cannot do an MBA program. So don't worry about not the professional. Professional experience is only for MBA or applied finance. All our other masters, you do not need professional experience. Does that answer your question, Yagis? Okay, well, while you're thinking, we've got a few minutes left. I've got another question for you. Hang on a sec. Okay, no problem, Yagis. You can still apply Master of International Business, Master of Commerce, any master's degree you want, as long as you meet the entry requirements, but not the ones that need professional experience. So MBA, Applied Finance. Okay, question for you. What are the two animals on the Australian national emblem? There are two animals on our national emblem. Everybody's now racing on to Google. I have Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Yes, no problem. Johnson & Johnson. So if you're interested, Mohammed, Australian Health Association follows what's called the TGA, Therapeutic Goods Authority. Okay, you can Google it, and it lists all the vaccines that we accept. We pretty much accept all of them now, except I don't think we accept Sputnik from Russia. But Sinovac, AstraZeneca, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Janssen, Covishield, you name it. I think we might be coming to the end, Zainab.
Yes, Anthony, thank you very much for your answers.
Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely, my pleasure. So like I said, you guys, you all have my email in the chat box. Send me an email directly if you want. If you're serious about an application or you want to know more about it, contact one of those three representatives, Atlas, Habedi, or IDP Turkey. As I said, I work very, very closely with them, and hopefully I'll be back in Turkey sometime next year as well, which would be fantastic to meet some of you guys in person. So if there aren't any other questions, it's been a pleasure to interact. Slightly one-directional. I can see you, you can see me, but I can't see you. But hopefully we can actually change that next year when I get back into Turkey. But in the meantime, keep well, keep safe, and keep the dream alive. And drop me an email if you're interested in studying. Hang on, something come up in the chat. Thank you for the presentation. You're welcome. Bishereil. Thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you, Merv. Thank you very much. My pleasure. Always a pleasure talking to you. And like I said, I would prefer to do it in person, and hopefully we can do that next year. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye.
Yes, thank you very much for the great presentation, Anthony. It was another great session with you, and it was really informative for the attendees. And
No worries.
also I would like to thank the participants in Turkish as well.
Please.
Katıldığınız için teşekkür ederiz arkadaşlar. Macquarie Üniversitesi ile ilgili diğer sorularınız için chat kısmında paylaşılmış olan mail adresinden Anthony'ye ulaşabilirsiniz. Umarız sizin için de faydalı bir webinar olmuştur. Aynı zamanda sizi haftaki webinarımıza da davet etmek isteriz. Thank you very much again, Anthony.
Teşekkür ederim arkadaşlar.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right.
It was a great and a pleasure to have you in IEFT Talks.
Always. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.